ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा श्रील प्रभुपदा जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस पवित्र अष्टोत्तर सदाशिव श्रीमद् विशेष संशय प्रभुपाद की जय इस्कॉन संस्थापकाचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस पवित्र अष्टोत्तर सदाशिव श्रीमद् निजवेंद्र भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से कोई श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसाद गौर भक्त की जय all glories to the assembly, all glories to the assembly, all glories to the assembly, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam, Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamutire, Ashtaprayeshu Patreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtivi. Hare Krishna. Welcome you all to the Saturday morning Srimad Bhagavatam summary discussion. Today we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 27. We'll do slokas 1 to 15 today. Umakyanti Mirantas, Jnananjana Shalakha, Chakshak Viltamina Tasma, Shri Gurave Namaha, Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam, Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa. Dadati Swapadantikam, Deham Shri Guru Shri Tapakamalam, Shri Kuran Vaishnavam, Shri Rupam Sakajatam, Saganar Kunatam, Tam Sajivim Sadpaitam Sabadatam. Parjan Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagananta Shri Vishakanvitam Shri Krishna Karan Dina Bandhu Jagat Pareko Kira Bandha Radha Kantani Mostute Tapta Kanchana Kaurani Ade Vrindavaneshwari Shri Manasthe Mami Adi Pray Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Vita Shri Vasant Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram 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 Hare Krishna. So this chapter is entitled Attack by Chandavega on the city of King Puranjana, the character of Kalakanya. So I'll just take you through a brief introduction of what has happened so far in the previous chapter, and then we'll continue with today's chapter. So King Prachina Barhe is a highly materialistic person with a lot of desires, basically sex desire. And uh, Narada Muni, out of his compassion, he speaks to Prachina Barhisad. He narrates a story of a king named Puranjana. Actually, this Puranjana allegory which Narada Muni is giving is meant for Prachina Bhatishat only. Many times we find these days also that when we want to speak to someone, we may not be in a position to speak, but then we may use examples like this happened like this, that so person was like this, person like this. We might want to give some examples or give a story by which the other person understands what we actually meaning. And we will see in today's discussion how at one point of time Narad Muni actually comes to the point saying that this allegory is meant for you because you are Puranjanas yourself. So these types of indirect methods are sometimes taken to teach something valuable. And actually, the definition of Puranjana itself means that anyone who wants to enjoy this material body is Puranjana himself. So we'll come to text number 1. Narada Uvacha Ittam Puranjanam Satritya Vashamaniya Vibramaihi Puranjani Maharaja Reme Ramayati Pati. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The great sage Narada continued, my dear king, after bewildering her husband in different ways and bringing him under her control, the wife of King Puranjana gave him all satisfaction and enjoyed sex life with him. So we will see that actually Puranjana and his wife went to the forest uh, and to in the name of hunting. They killed a lot of animals. They came back home. Then after that, here Narad Muni is continuing that the king Puranjana came under the control of his wife Puranjani. They had nice bath, had a lot of nice food. Then Puranjana started searching for his wife, and he saw that his wife was lying down on the ground without a proper bed, as if she was neglected, and she didn't have a proper dress also. So seeing that, he became very much aggrieved, and then uh, he got attracted. As it is, he was had a weakness for women, and he got attracted to seeing her in this condition. And the point is that living entities like us also in this material world are engaged in sinful activities. Uh, and this Puranja is an example. So the King Puranjana went to the forest and he did a lot of hunting in the forest. So a person who is committed to conducting sinful activities in the name of religion, they have to perform various austerities like yajna or vata, vows, taking a vow, or dana, or some religious rituals. By doing this, one may become free from the reactions of sinful activities, and then gradually they may come to the stage of Krishna consciousness. So Puranjana was in a similar situation, and Srila Prabhupada mentions that in the Vedas there is also mention about how sinful activities can lead one to a very irresponsible life and can have a lot of consequences in the next life. So if a husband and wife combine together properly in proper Krishna consciousness, then the house remains very peaceful. It's a good compatible situation. But either if the husband or if the wife becomes addicted attracted to each other and forget their duty, prime duty in life, which is the prime duty of the human form of life is to attain self-realization. If that is not done, then there are a lot of implications due to sinful activities in one's life. So one of the most important activity, sinful activity in one's life is uh, sex with the opposite sex, and that too illegitimate. Sex is not prohibited, but sex is permitted for creating progeny who can deliver themselves and also their dependents from the cycle of birth and death. That is what sex life is meant for. But King Puranjana was not like that. So a husband should, the first thing is that the husband, generally it is said that a wife, women are generally very passionate, but a husband, if he starts engaging in devotional service, that brings him to the mode of goodness. And such gradually his wife also starts following. And then they both combine together, understand the purpose of the human life. And then they become free from sinful reactions. And then they have to perform, if they are not coming to Krishna consciousness, either they have to perform sacrifices or take some vows or give in charity. But then it is a slow process. It is not definitely that one gives these things, gives a charity and he becomes free from sinful reactions. No, it's not like that. It's a long process. But if someone takes to the process of Krishna consciousness, he automatically becomes free from all sinful reactions. Also, it is once a person gets married, it is the duty of a man to keep his wife happy, by giving her a lot of nice clothes, nice ornaments, good food, and etc., and engaging her also in religious activity. He also has to become religious, and he has to engage his wife also in religious activities. But on the contrary, if this happens, then what happens is that the children at home, they also develop a tendency to take up religious activities right from their childhood, from their birth, and the house becomes very, very peaceful. But if, on the other hand, one becomes attracted to the opposite sex, then the family life becomes very, very abominable. And we see that even today, very many houses, there are so many disturbances, mainly because the sex desire is based on physical attraction, which doesn't last for a long time. And we see that the whole world is captivated today by the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance. But if the husband somehow or the other can come to the mode of goodness, and then he can uh, also try to see that his wife overcomes the mode of passion and ignorance, and that she also comes to the platform of goodness. So when both of them come to the platform of goodness, it is easier to practice devotional service, and the situation is becomes free from pollution. So the conclusion is that, in fact, household life, we all might have heard about the Varnashrama system. Grihastha life itself is meant for a higher purpose. Otherwise, it becomes a Griha Medi, based on selfish interests. And this Grihastha life is meant to understand the responsibility, which is not which is the purpose of human life. So, Grihastha life means to understand that there is higher purpose for human life. Whereas brahmacharis are already attained that situation. So for them, it's not a big deal. But for Grihastha, it's a very, very big responsibility, because Shastras also say that one cannot become a father or a mother unless and until one can deliver their dependence on the cycle of birth and death. Otherwise, one takes the reactions for their own activities, plus also the children who are going to commit sinful activities. Text number 2. I'll not be reciting all the slokas, some important ones I will take up because we need to do a lot of coverage today. Text number 2, the translation says, the queen took her bath and dressed herself very nicely with all auspicious garments uh, and ornaments. After taking food and becoming completely satisfied, she returned to the king. And upon seeing her beautifully decorated, attractive face, the king welcomed her with all devotion. So the practice is that generally in the Vedic system, the husband used to go out for work, and in the process, he meets a lot of challenges. He has to challenges in his work atmosphere, social atmosphere, so forth. So the women used to be normally at home during those yesterday years. So in order to ensure that the husband does not get captivated by seeing beauty outside the family life, women who are at home, generally they take care of the interests of the husband. And as soon as a husband comes back in the evening from his office or business or whatever it is, and because he's working all day and goes through a lot of stress, so it is the duty of the wife to take bath and be nicely dressed up. And when he returns home, the husband gets attracted by seeing her beauty, and then thus he becomes satisfied. In other words, a good wife can be an inspiration for giving good intelligence to her husband. So wife also plays a very important role. So when a humble and good wife behaves this way, then the husband does not look for any interest outside of the family. Therefore, it is said that a good wife should be a source of inspiration and should keep the husband's intelligence in good order, so they both can jointly combine together and lead a family life without any very big impediment. And this can be understood only in the Grihastha life. And that's why it is said that the religious family life is very, very important and at the same time, very, very useful also. Text number 3, translation. Queen Puranjana embraced the king, and the king also responded by embracing her shoulders. In this way, in a solitary place, They enjoyed joking words. Thus King Puranjana became very much captivated by his beautiful wife and deviated from his good sense. He forgot that the passing of days and nights meant that his lifespan was being reduced without profit. So there is a general tendency that when a man and women meet, they would like to meet in an exclusive, solitary place. This is a general tendency because they think it's their personal life, so they want to meet in a solitary place. So the Puranjana also, he got attracted by the beauty of his wife and he started embracing her in a solitary place. And he got captivated seeing the beauty of his wife. So in that way, he lost all his good sense. And the time was passing, days and nights were passing very fast. We see that when one is engaged in sense gratification, uh, we don't realize how time passes. And so this way, King Puranjana passed his life without any profit. There is an important point in this sloka. The word pramada is very significant. That is, it says that a beautiful wife is certainly enlivening to her husband, but at the same time, it is a cause of degradation also. So, the word pramada means enlivening, and at the same time, a woman can become a cause of maddening also. So a woman, a wife can be enlivening as well as maddening. Generally, it should be enlivening. But if we see today, because the attraction to each other is due to purely sex desire, that enlivening is not there, but we see more of maddening, and there's always a fight between the households. So generally, a householder does not take the that is, this is meant for grihamedis who live based on uh, se- uh, sex desire or selfishness. They don't take into consideration how the time is passing very fast. The days and nights are passing very, very fast. So a person in ignorance, he thinks after all time is today has gone. Tomorrow, today the night will also go. Again, there will be a fresh start tomorrow. So a person in ignorance thinks like that. But Shastra has explained how with the rise of a sun in the morning, it takes away every moment of a person's life. That means 1 second, we see that second is gone. And if that second is not utilized properly, then we have wasted that which is that second is not going to come back. So with the rising of sun, one's moment of life is gradually getting reduced. And this can be understood only by a sensible person in the human form of life. But a foolish man thinks that he will always try to enjoy with his wife in a secluded place. So human consciousness is meant to elevate oneself to Krishna consciousness. And when a person gets too much attracted to wife and family affairs, he does not take it very seriously, and therefore he becomes degraded, not knowing what is going to be his next life, and not knowing that he cannot buy back that even a fraction of a moment of second for millions of dollars he might be having. A king is a very wealthy person, but he does not realize that the time past cannot be recovered at any point of time. So it is said that the greatest loss that one can have in one's life is uh, not utilizing the time and without understanding Krishna, which is what the human life is meant for. Without devotional service to the Lord, the activities of life become simply a waste of time. And Srila Prabhupada quotes a verse in this purport from Srimad Bhagavatam 1 to 8. It's a very popular verse. I will not quote the verse, I'll just recite the translation. If after performing one's occupational duty very perfectly, one does not make progress in Krishna consciousness, it should be understood that he has simply wasted his time in valuable labor. That means whether it is a husband or a wife, they have performed their duty very perfectly. But in the process of performing their duty perfectly, if they are not if they have not reached the stage of Krishna consciousness, that means it's simply waste of time. It's a waste of efforts also, because the Varnashrama system itself has been designed by the Lord in such a way that by performing their duties in their respective ashramas, they reach a stage by whereby they reach the stage of Krishna consciousness. In this case, the Puranjana's wife is actually maddening. She was not enlivening. Text number 4. The translation says, in this way, increasingly overwhelmed by illusion, King Puranjana, although advanced in consciousness, remained always lying down with his head on the pillow of his wife's arms. In this way, he considered woman to be his ultimate life and soul. Being thus overwhelmed by the mode of ignorance, he could not understand the meaning of self realization of his self or of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means human life is meant for achieving the process of self realization. The first part of the self realization is that I'm not this body, but I'm a spirit soul. And the second stage of realization is that we are all that body or even the spirit soul is a part and parcel of the Supreme Soul. And the duty of a person in a human form of life is to understand a lot one's position vis-a-vis the Supreme Lord Krishna and render transcendental devotion service. Otherwise, what happens is that one develops a lot of material attachment to the opposite sex, and he takes that a woman is all in all for everything, and he thinks that his wife is all in all in his life. So that is the basic principle of material attachment. And in such a case, it is very difficult for one to come to a stage of understanding personality of Godhead. And as you all know, we have understood in Bhagavad Gita, whatever consciousness is there at the time of our leaving our body, that is the consciousness for will be the next body for us in the next life. That it means if a husband thinks of his wife constantly, he will take uh, the body of a woman. And if a wife thinks of her husband all the time, at the time of her death, then she becomes a man in her next life. And if both are attached to each other, they may become as husband and wife in the next life. Also, they continue with the same attachment. Whereas if one tries to associate with Mahatmas or devotees of the Lord, then their path to liberation is automatically open. But if they are attached to each other due to sex desire, then they become attached directly or indirectly, and they open the doors for hellish life in the next life. So King Puranjana actually was a great intelligent person. He was a great soul. He was highly intelligent and possessed of a lot of good qualities. But due to his being too much addicted to women, his whole consciousness was covered. And this is the condition today in the present world in every house. Uh, People want three things, that is wine, woman, and flesh. And all the three of them lead one to commit sinful activities. And we see in present today's situation, both men and women are attracted to each other right from the beginning of life. In the Vedic system, generally marriage was organized very nicely, and then the men and women, they were not allowed to relate with each other openly. But nowadays, right from the time that they go to school itself, they get attracted to each other, and they try to have personal conversations, which ultimately lead to attraction to each other. So thinking of a woman always within one's heart is like just compared to lying down with a woman on her valuable bed. So the heart is like compared to a bedstead, and it is the most valuable bedstead. So when a man thinks always of woman and money, it is as good as he lies down and rests on the arms of his beloved woman or wife. And this way, he overindulges in sex life and becomes unfit for self-realization. Text number 5. Translation, Srila Bhagavad Gita. My dear King Prachina Varghisa, in this way, King Puranjana, with his heart full of lust and sinful reactions, began to enjoy sex with his wife, and in this way, his new life and youth expired in half a moment. So, like I mentioned, if we are engaged in sense gratificatory activities, we see that time passes very fast, days and nights pass very fast. Whereas if we are involved in some other activity, the time passes very slowly. And here, in the case of Puranjana, because he was attracted to his wife, and was trying to enjoy his sex life all the time with his wife, his life, his youth, everything started passing off in a very short moment. So Srila Prabhupada, this verse, Prabhupada quotes a very popular quote from Srila Govinda Dasa. He says, there is no bliss in the enjoyment of a youthful life today because of attraction to opposite sex. In youth, a person becomes very lusty to enjoy all kinds of sense objects. The sense objects are like form, taste, smell, touch, and sound. So the modern era, we see that what they call as marketing. The market is like promote nice perfumes. They promote a lot of nice, attractive dresses to make the opposite sex very beautiful. The marketers also give a lot of messages in radio and television and promote a lot of sense gratification, a lot of nice songs which induce a person to sense gratification. So this way, uh, the media actually promotes or rather induces a living entity to get attracted to the opposite sex, where each one is like uh, inspired to touch the other person's uh, beauty and bodily features. And it looks like they become very good. And whether a person is beautiful or not, one who is captivated by Cupid, he automatically thinks that the other person is beautiful. But this thing is there in the animals also. So if one does not observe the stipulations in the human form of life, he's as good as he's like an animal. So the consciousness of Puranjana was polluted by lusty desires, and in the process, he was committed to sinful activities. So though Puranjana was very intelligent, but he was always thinking of lying down on a soft bed with his wife. This is how his consciousness got degraded. Then there's a mention in this purport of how when a person in his youth, say from 16 onwards to 30, during that period of time, one has a desire, very strong desire to enjoy his senses. And when he thinks like this, the Lord also facilitates. But then what happens is that time and tide does not wait for anybody. Time keeps on passing very fast. And the span of youth expires very quickly. And one who is just used to committing these sinful activities in youth becomes disappointed and disillusioned when the brief period of youth is over. So many times we see that many people commit suicide uh, because they have failed uh, even before getting married. When men and women get enjoyed, get used to sensual activities, or get attracted to each other, and then because this attraction is due to the external bodily beauty, the bodily beauty doesn't last for a long time. Uh, we see that we are looking very beautiful at a very young age, and as we grow old, we lose our beauty. And this can be understood if only by one who has undergone through some spiritual training. So if one is trained properly, then he understands that this body is basically a temporary this thing, and the soul within the body is very more important. So with King Puranjana, always desiring pleasure, his time passed very fast. Then there's a mention that unrestricted sense enjoyment is not allowed in the human form of life by the laws of nature. But if one enjoys his senses unrestrictedly, he leads a sinful life. As mentioned that even a lion, animals also live a very regulated life. If you see ants crawling, they crawl in a they go in a very disciplined manner. But if you see many people, the human form of, they gather together, particularly here we see that each one pushing each other. So, but the animals don't do that. Similarly, I will provide an example that a lion has a strong desire to eat flesh. And basically, a lion is very powerful and he's a flesh eater also. But they enjoy sex only once in a year. But whereas in the human form of life, there is no restriction. A man and woman enjoys life throughout the period, the year. So this facility is given to mankind, but that facility is not there given to animals. So the man is allowed to be with his wife with certain conditions until the wife becomes pregnant. I mean, even the sex life is to be done properly by performing the Garbhadana Samskara. That Garbhadana Samskara facilitates to purify both man and woman's mental status so that the progeny that comes out of the union, they are good progeny. But because people don't perform these Garbhadana Samskaras, uh, their mental status is also a question mark at the time of the union, and the children that comes out are also highly materialistic in nature, and this is what we see today in today's day-to-day basis. And these are stipulations that are mentioned in the Manu Samhita also, and other scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is only in human form of life that one can read the scriptures, understand it, and apply it in one's life. So the conclusion is that unrestricted sense enjoyment means sinful activities. And when one violates the laws of the scriptures, he commits sinful activities. Whereas our real function in the human form of life is change from a material consciousness to Krishna consciousness, which is pure consciousness. Krishna is pure. So when we become Krishna consciousness, we also become pure in our consciousness. And in Kali Yuga, we see people are more addicted to performing sinful activities. And in the name of religion, people perform sinful activities. Many people say that I'm doing this, I'm a religious person, but they don't know what is a religious activity. Sometimes people might perform some pious activity, like giving in some charity to hospitals or schools, but in the process, they also reach a situation where they develop pride in themselves. I've given so much to this hospital, I've given so much to this school, I've built something for this person. But in the process, they develop some pride, and that pride also becomes the cause of their fall down. But a Krishna conscious person is such that it purifies a person, even if he has developed some pride, and makes the person very humble. Text number 6. Translation says, the great sage Narada then addressed King Prachina Varisar. O one whose lifespan is great, in this way King Puranjana begot 1,100 sons within the womb of his wife, Puranjani. However, in this business, he passed away half of his lifespan. So generally, we assume that human life today is 100 years. So brahmachari life lasts up to 25, and from 26 to 50, they are supposed to be in grihastha life. And if grihastha life is not properly used, then that life becomes wasted. And if one stays in a proper grihastha ashrama, then the system was prevailing that they could go to forest or mountains and practice a vanaprastha stage, and then lastly, if they want, they can take sannyas. But of course, in Kali Yuga, vanaprastha and sannyasa stage does not exist at all. So in the case of Puranjana, he got 1,100 sons within the womb of his wife, and this way he passed greater part of his life. Puranjana not only begot 1,100 sons, but he also got 110 daughters. Nowadays, of course, it is not possible in Kali Yuga to beget so many sons and daughters, but in the earlier years it was possible. And the kings used to have many wives also. On the contrary, in Kali Yuga, people resort to using contraceptives to check the process of trying to avoid progeny, which is considered sinful as per Shastras. In the yesteryears, there was no contraceptive methods, and the children who were born were of good character. But now we see that even when the child goes to school, he is highly agitated. Because when the man and woman jointly unite together in the mode of passion or even the mode of ignorance, which child progeny also is in that mode only, right from the time of their birth. So Puranjana God begot a lot of children with this. Uh, but however, if one is fortunate enough to have a good uh, consciousness wife, then they both can consult each other and then make the best use of the human form of life. The children are called the resultant activity or byproducts. And when one uses his good intelligence, he can see that the byproducts are also intelligent materially as well as spiritually also. But if one focuses on material consciousness, they will be focused only on material lines, and the children progeny also will be focused only materially. Text number 7. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O Prajapati King Prachinavari said, in this way, King Puranjana also begot 110 daughters, and all of them were equally glorified like the father and mother. Their behavior was gentle, and they possessed magnanimity and other good qualities. Now, in the case of King Puranjana, though he was addicted to sex life, he had a lot of good kingly qualities. So the children were also gentle in behavior, and they all had nice good qualities also. But if this does not happen, then what happens is that the children become illegitimately born, and which is called the Varna Shankara in Sanskrit. The Varna Shankara population is actually irresponsibility in the family, community, and even to themselves. And we see that today most of the children are from this Varna Shankara population. And this can be corrected by properly performing the Garbhodana Samskara. It is a child begetting religious ceremony. If done properly, it can have a good effect. So in the case of King Puranjana, because he had some good qualities, the children were not Varna Shankara, were from Varna Shankara. All of them were well behaved and they had good qualities. So there is a mention that too much of sense gratification can lead to sinful reactions, but one has to become a Goswami, one who can keep his senses under his control in the human form of life. And then one may get bigger children up to the age of 50, but after that one must stop and accept the Vanaprastha order. Text number 8. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. After this King Puranjana, the king of Panchala country, in order to increase the descendants of his paternal family, married his sons with qualified wives and married his daughters with qualified husbands. So, as per Vedic system, it is the duty of the father and mother to ensure that their sons and daughters are married. So, Puranjana also got his children married. And one of the reasons why uh, sons were required, in fact, even now people prefer sons, but they don't know what is the purpose that one should have a son. People think that if they have a son, they don't have to spend much of a time, money for a daughter. But it is not the prime duty of that also. The purpose of having a son is that a son can offer something called pindodaka or oblations in the sacrifice, which goes to the forefathers because it is offered to Lord Vishnu. Those who have the forefathers who have left the body here and gone to the place called Pitruloka, that Pitruloka is the planet of the forefathers. Those who have lived a materialistic life, they achieve this planet called Pitruloka. And again, it is a place of suffering only. So a son is required to offer Pindadana so that the forefathers are delivered from there. And this is done to the Lord Vishnu himself, and by which the forefathers get delivered from there. But in today's situation, we see that there's nobody knows what is the purpose of this Pindadana. So they don't understand the importance of a son in the family also. So Puranjana got all his sons and daughters married, and he lived an aristocratic life. So it is the duty of all the parents to get their children married. And unfortunately, the current trend is that marriage itself is becoming rare day by day, because the concept of live-in relationship, which was there in the years in the Western world, we Indians are very good at imitating and copying them, and that system is gradually taking place even in India. But a woman and a man joining without marriage is a very, very simple activity. Initially, the attraction may not be based on sexual distinct, but by external beauty. Ultimately, it leads one to attachment to each other. Text number 9. Translation Shilpa, baat कीजिए. Of these many sons, each produced hundreds and hundreds of grandsons. And in this way, the whole city of Panchala became overcrowded by the sons and grandsons of King Puranjana. So here, the mention of how this Puranjana is basically a living entity, and the city of Panchala is his body. Now, if you know, we perform all our activities in our body. So the reference is given here that Puranjana is a living entity within his body, and this body is called Panchala. So there are two things that are important that are existing in all the living entities. One is the material body, and the other one is the spirit soul. So the body is compared to a Panchala Desha, or a field, a place where there is a field for activities to be performed. Now, living entity who has a tendency to enjoy the senses through the sense objects, they're basically gandha, that is smell, which I mentioned that why do people put perfume? Because they body is smelling because of bad habits. People get up in the morning and they want to have a coffee or tea. So these things actually deteriorate the living conditions of a person. So to cover these, people nowadays don't even brush their teeth in the morning. So they use perfumes to attract the opposite sex. Then rasa means taste, rupa means form, sparsha means touch, and shabda and means sound. So there is a tendency for each one to get carried away by the opposite sex through these 5 forms. And all these are subtle or gross, but they are all temporary. That is why it is the allegory is given that sons and grandsons. There are 2 kinds of activities that people perform. One is pious and the other one is impious. The pious activities give good results, and impious activities give impious, sinful results. Many times people perform fruitive activities, or they also mentally speculate. These are all like cups of poison. And it is said that whoever drinks them, the thinking to be nectar, must struggle life after life in different types of bodies. And such a person eats all kinds of nonsense and becomes condemned by his activities of the so-called enjoyment. That means what happens is that we all think of momentary pleasure based on our bodily concept of life, without understanding that all these have got sinful reactions. And sometimes when a person gets degraded from a mode of goodness to mode of passion or ignorance, they're degraded into other species of life in their next life. They may be an animal or a bird, which knows. Thus, it is said that a living entity who is inclined towards sexual gratification becomes involved in many hundreds and thousands of actions and reactions. And this way, he lives in this material world, producing so many sons and grandsons. In the so-called so many societies, nation, somebody calls I'm Indian, somebody says I'm American, and somebody says I'm a British. And these are the wrong identification. And these are the symptoms of a Grihamedi. A Grihamedi is one who wants to remain within this material world. But a Grihastha is one who thinks how to become free from the cycle of birth and death from this material world. So a Grihamesi always thinks of increasing sex enjoyment. He enjoys and sex and produces children, who in turn marry and produce grandchildren. So the grandchildren also marry, and in their turn, they produce great grandchildren. And in this way, the earth becomes overpopulated, which we see today. And then there are a lot of reactions in the form of war. We see there is a war always prevailing somewhere or the other. If not war, there is famine. Otherwise, there is drought or earthquakes, and we see landslides. So many people are dying. This is because the entire population has lost the value and to understand the human form of life. They just simply wants to create progeny. So one time during Srila Prabhupada's time, he was introduced to a very great aristocratic family in India itself. So the head of the family introduced, these are my daughters, this is my son, this son is a doctor, this son is an engineer, this son is a businessman. And the family was so huge, they had so many sons, grandsons, daughters, granddaughters, and great granddaughters, great grandsons. Uh, and the man was just busy introducing everyone to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada finally concluded that this huge family size is a result of sex life because there is no self-realization. Now we come to text number 10. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. These sons and grandsons were virtually plunderers of King Puranjana's riches, including his home, treasury, servants, secretaries, and all other paraphernalia. Puranjana's attachment for these things was very deep rooted. That means Puranjana was very, very deep rooted due to attachment to his wife. And this concept goes on. And what happens is that the generation that comes out next, they all plunder whatever wealth that has been accumulated by the fathers or forefathers. One's own sons, grandsons are ultimately, it is termed as plunderers of one's accumulated wealth. We see in today's situation how there are many who don't want to work. They want to stay at home, but they are comfortable because their fathers have gathered a lot of wealth. And uh, there are many who don't want to even continue their father's business uh, and so forth. Such type of personalities, ultimately they plunder whatever the father or forefather has earned. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that even in India, there are so many industrialists who are all like King Puranjana, very much sexually inclined and have half a dozen wives. And each of the wife has got so many sons. And one important point is that when they have so many wives, they have to give them maintenance also. They have to, in their families, where the head of the family has to pay so much thousands of rupees to so many wives. And if that when that doesn't take place, then these days there is a legal case. They fight in the court of law. The law doesn't have any proper these things to correct these situations. Then there is a divorce. Then the children are left astray. So this is a fact in the house of many big personalities, industries also. So the parents work hard, accumulate money, and also the parents are satisfied when that money is plundered by their sons and grandsons. This is one of the most important points. The parents don't encourage or inspire their generation to work, but rather they are very happy. Oh, my son has taken this much of wealth from me. My grandsons have taken this much. But the real fact is that the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Bhoktaram Yajnatapasa Sarvaloke Maheshwaram. We all get all the wealth that we get is from the personality of Godhead Krishna only. So when we get the wealth from him, he's the actual enjoyer. Whereas the so-called earners of money, they take away the money from God under the guise of business or industry. And after accumulating this money, they enjoy seeing their generations plundering it. So this is a materialistic way of life. And in this way, one's attachment for the material world grows deeper and deeper, and this it becomes very difficult for the living entity to come out of this entanglement. Also, there is a quote from Bhagavad Gita where Sri Prabhupada mentions a demoniac person thinks, I have gathered so much of wealth today, and I am going to put all these things in so many schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in future more and more. This person is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemy will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, I am powerful and happy. I am the richest man surrounded by so many aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices, I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. The point is that people commit sinful activities. Then they start thinking that I'll perform so many sacrifices, I'll give so much in charity, and then I will enjoy my life. King Puranjana was also a person who went to the forest and killed a lot of animals. And later on, it is said that, which we will discuss in the subsequent verses, Puranjana performed a lot of sacrifices. And these sacrifices, in the process of these sacrifices, a lot of animals were killed. And they don't know what is the outcome of all these things. But a person like Puranjana thinks that I'm happy now and I will overcome the results of all my sinful activities by giving some charity or by doing perform sacrifices. So people engage in such laborious activities by which their attachment to body, family, nation becomes more and more deep rooted. So if you see today also, many people perform so many homas, yajnas, and all which are not recommended in the Shastras. But if they consider it as a religious ritual to overcome the sinful reactions, but actually the reactions don't go away by this. So the tendency today in the material world is to take advantage of these processes in the guise of religion. And thereby one misleads himself, or he himself takes a wrong path and misleads the family members also. Text number 11. This is an important verse. I will read this verse. Ijesha kratubir ghor dikshita pashumarakaihi devan pitrin bhotapatin nana kamo yatha pavan. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Please hear very carefully. The great sage Narada continued, my dear King Prachina Barisar, like you, King Puranjana also became implicated in so many desires. Thus he worshipped demigods, forefathers, and social leaders with various sacrifices, which were all very ghastly because they were inspired by the desire to kill animals. So you see such an important translation. In this verse, uh, Narada actually comes to the point of telling King Prachina Barisar that you are King Puranjana yourself. You have got implicated yourself with so many desires. And Puranjana actually started worshipping demigods. And now you all know that whatever worship one does for demigods, that also can be done only by the mercy of the Lord. It is not that see, we see so many times people, when Lakshmi Puja comes, they worship goddess of fortune. But just by worshipping the goddess of fortune does not bring them wealth. Also, many people have a wrong conception that by worshipping forefathers, they can progress materially as well as spiritually. There are some people who worship social leaders, politicians, sports personalities. There are places where people have installed forms in the form of idols of sports personalities and politicians and so forth. And also the process of sacrifices involves killing many animals, which is another gross sinful activity. So here Narada Muni discloses the character of Puranjana uh, to King Prachinabar. He said that you are King Puranjana yourself. And he says, like you, and he's coming directly to the point. So generally, karmis who are attached to increasing descendants, long progeny, have to perform so many sacrifices and worship so many demigods for future generations, as well as to satisfy so many leaders, politicians, philosophers, and scientists to make things go on properly for future generations. So when you have a large family, having a lot of sons, lot of grandsons, daughters, granddaughters, you have to perform sacrifices for each one sinful activity. So your life goes on at this time, performing sacrifices which may not give the necessary results. And that is why it is still a purport, as I mentioned the last example, that Hugh's family was due to attraction to sex desire. So modern civilization today now is centered around animal killing. The karmis are advertising that eating without eating meat, one does not gain strength or in the body. So to keep oneself, one has to work very hard. Then to maintain itself, one has to work very hard these days. Money doesn't come very easily. So to work very hard, one must eat meat. This is a wrong conception. And to digest meat, one must drink liquor. And to keep the balance of drinking wine and eat, one must have sufficient sexual intercourse to keep fit to work very hard like an ass. So we see here how the cycle goes on. People have to work hard for their sustenance. Now, for that, when they work hard, they come back, they need to eat meat because they feel that without meat, they don't get the bodily strength. Then for the meat to digest, they need to drink liquor. And then to keep the balance of drinking liquor and eating meat and all, one must have sufficient sexual intercourse, which is a reality which we see in today's day-to-day life in every second home. Not second home, most of the houses. So people work like an ass. Srila Prabhupada always gives an example of working like an ass, which is what has degraded the society. So there are two ways of animal killing. One way in the name of religious sacrifices, and uh, the other way is sending the animal to slaughterhouses and eating that flesh. Now, when it comes to sacrifices, there are a lot of stipulations for killing animals. It is not that one can go and kill an animal and perform a sacrifice. It does not give the necessity result. According to Vedic civilization, animal eaters are recommended to sacrifice a goat in the temple of Kali under certain restrictive rules and regulations and eat the flesh. It is not that anyone can go and sacrifice a goat in front of goddess Kali and eat that flesh. There is no such a stipulation. There are a lot of regulations given in the scriptures for that. On this so and so day, a goat can be sacrificed. Similarly, uh, there are stipulations for drinking wine in the scriptures, but they're all restricted. There is no open thing for anybody. And in spite of all these things, one has to take the reactions for all these things. So a Vaishnava Acharya like Narada Muni, he knows very well that persons who are engaged in such animal killing in the name of religion are certainly becoming involved in the cycle of birth and death, forgetting the real aim of life to go back home, go back to Godhead. So Narada Muni is a great Vaishnava, and Lord has empowered him to travel all around the globe to propagate the holy name of the Lord. So a personality like Narad Muni is advising King Prachinavarisa that you have led a very sinful life due to your attachment to your wife, and family, etc., for which you have performed so many sacrifices. I mean, that will not be covered today. And we will see that how the animals which King Prachinavarisa killed, they are all waiting in their next life to kill the king. That means that there is a sinful reaction for killing the animals. And one who has not done a proper sacrifice, if he has killed an animal, one has to be. The very meaning of mamsa means I kill you today, tomorrow you kill me. That is the very definition of mamsa. So King Prachinavarisa got involved into this cycle without understanding the real aim of life, that was to go back home, back to Godhead. So the Lord himself advented in this material world as Buddha to put into animal killing in the name of religion. So before the advent of Lord Buddha, people were resorting to killing animals in a very big way. So Lord Buddha appeared to preach against non-violence. If you know that Buddha actually preached non-violence. So he uh, preached that animal killing is not right. So, and which particularly when people do it in the name of religion, it is in the mode of ignorance, and one has to suffer a lot for that. And those who are involved in this mode of ignorance, they manufacture different religious systems for killing animals. If you go to anyone who is eating meat today, he will say that I offered to Kali and taking her prasad. Kali herself does not eat a meat. When someone follows the stipulations that are given in the scriptures, the followers of Kali might eat that, but Kali herself does not, because she's a great Vaishnavi. And she does not eat the meat of the animals. But people speculate and form so many forms of religious activities and the process kill animals. That is when Lord Buddha appeared to preach non-violence. Actually, dharma or religion is transcendental to all these activities. So we must give up all these substandard forms of religion and surrender simply to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Another important point from this verse is that people follow the Vedas for animal killing, but they don't want to follow the restrictions that are given in the Vedas for the same. Vedas give a lot of restrictions. They don't just say you kill an animal, they also give a lot of restrictions. But people, they resort to killing the animal, but they don't follow the restrictions that are given in the Vedas. Text number 12. Thus, King Puranjana, being attached to fruitive activities, that is karma kandya, as well as kith and kin, and being obsessed with polluted consciousness, eventually arrived at that point not very much liked by those who are overly attached to material things. I'll repeat this again. Thus, King Puranjana, being attached to fruitive activities, as well as attachment to kith and kin, and being obsessed with polluted consciousness, eventually arrived at that point which is not liked by those who are materially attached. That means he came to the point of death. Before death, one goes through old age. Of course, nowadays old people die even before attaining old age. This is the symptom of Kali Yuga. But King Puranjana reached that stage of old age, which will ultimately lead him to death. Some important points here. Generally, those who are used to addicted to material enjoyment, they don't like death because they feel that they are going to be deprived of material enjoyment at the point of death. But death is something nobody can stop. Everybody has to overcome that at some time or the other. And Srila Prabhupada gives an example of how a very saintly person, he was passing by and he came across different types of people. He met a prince. He was a great son of a king. He said, my dear prince, you may live forever. The reason is that this prince was living a very sinful life. So he said, you live forever. It doesn't make a difference whether you die or live, because you're going to suffer for that. Then that sage met a brahmachari devotee, and he blessed by saying that, my dear devotee, you may die immediately. Why? Because the brahmachari has undertaken a lot of austerities. So whether whatever austerities you have undertaken, it is better that you die immediately and go back to Godhead. Then the prince met a hunter and he blessed him, saying that neither live nor die. That means he said that whether you live or die, you're going to suffer elaborately because you have enjoyed your life, put your life into sense gratification. Brahmacharis lead a lot of austerities, so he said you go back to God. For a hunter, he said you have committed killed a lot of animals. So whether you live or whether you live the next life or you die, you have lived such this thing, it doesn't make any difference. You're going to continue to suffer this life and you're going to continue suffer at the next life also. So Puranjana reached this stage of old age. And in old age, it is mentioned that people lose their strength. And even at that age, people don't lose the desire to enjoy senses. And the sense organs also become very, very weak, by which he is not able to enjoy the senses. And ultimately, he becomes frustrated. And he is not able, because he is not able to enjoy. Such sensualists are never prepared for death. I mean, we see that death comes in the very cruel form. Many times we see that people have to spend in the hospital. Mostly these days, people before dying, they have to be admitted to the hospital, giving a big payment of bill. and they are not even in the proper consciousness in the hospital. The hospital exploits. This is what is called a Hiranyakashipu mentality. And if you know that Lord killed Hiranyakashipu within a second. So as death, the Lord kills such living entities. And old age cannot be covered irrespective one puts a nice perfume or colors the hair with a proper dye or something. People use so many colors, but old age remains old age. It cannot be covered. And then finally, a living entity like Puranjana reaches a stage of frustration. Text number 13. I'll be rushing because we have 3 slokas to cover. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O king, in Gandharvaloka, there is a king named Chandavega. Under him, there are 360 very powerful Gandharva soldiers. Now, time is described here as Chandavega. That means the time and tide waits for nobody. And time here is called Chandavega, which means time passes very swiftly. So as time passes, here Srila Prabhupada mentions, we may be thinking of 365 days, but here Srila Prabhupada mentions 360 days, and all these 3 days are compared to soldiers. So Chandavega's powerful soldiers, they are all taking away every moment of one's life. As the sun rises and sets, it snatches away the balance of our lifespan. We don't know. A part of my life has already gone with the past few moments. So thus, as each day passes, each one of us loses some life duration. It is therefore said that duration of one's life cannot be saved. But if one is engaged in devotional service, his time cannot be taken away by the sun. The time takes away a person's devotee's life also, but then it is eternal because devotional service does not get wasted. Whatever time he has put in this life in devotional service, if he has completed, he goes back to Godhead. And if he has not completed, it continues in his next life. Somebody has done 50% of devotional life in this life. Next life, he doesn't start from zero. He starts from 51. Whereas if you are a MBBS doctor in this life, you don't know whether you will be an MBBS doctor in next life. And when the next life you start from nursery and so forth, if at all you become qualified to become a doctor, which also is doubtful. So the conclusion is that if one wants to make immortal, he should give up sense gratification by engaging in devotional service. Otherwise, one can see so many Gandharvas which are like mirages and illusory things. The Gandharvas, also there is a mention, the Gandharvas are both male and female. That means the followers of Chandavega, that is, time takes away in the form of male and female. The example is given that the days are compared to male and the nights are compared to female. It's just a proper understanding that Puranjana was the lifespan got reduced by days and nights. And nights are compared, given 2 classifications, which I will, it is in the next verse, text 14. Along with Chandavega were as many female Gandharvis as there were soldiers, and all of them repetitively plundered all the paraphernalia for sense enjoyment. So Lord, as time comes, and along with him, a lot of other energies also come. So night is compared generally a time for sex enjoyment, and days. That's why days are compared to white, and nights are compared to black. And also there are 2 kinds of nights, that is black night and white nights. That is the period of waxing moon and waning moon. So all these nights and days put together take away man's span of life and everything we manufacture for our sense gratification. Srila Prabhupada gives an example in the purport. We use so many machines, washing machine, then what do you call these days? You wash vessels also. So all these machines we are used, and shaving machine. Nowadays you get machines for cleaning the floor also. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned the time factor is so strong. Not only our life is cut short, but even the lifespan of all these machines are also getting deteriorated day in and day out. Every time you use, the lifespan of that machine is also getting deteriorated. So this is how material life is plundering everyone without knowledge of our own self. Whereas if you ask any of your grandparents or forefathers, none of them were using any of their machines, so they were not worried about that. Everything was done by themselves. So one day, when death comes, not only it will take away our body, but also we will be entering another body. Plus all the so-called accumulations that we have made in our life, they also come to an end. Machine may be working, but once our body comes to a halt, that machines are of no use. Text number 15 is the last verse for the day. When King Gandharva and his followers, that is Chandavega and the followers, began to plunder the city of Puranjana, a snake with 5 hoods began to defend the city. Now, this is a very important point here. The 5 hoods of a snake indicate that the life air is surrounded by 5 kinds of air. If you ask anybody who is into Ayurveda, he will explain that this body is functioning because of 5 kinds of air. They are prana, apana, vyana, udana, and samana. So when these 5 kinds of air are in proper perfection, then the body is active. But when the body is inactive, the prana or life factor is also becoming weak. So up to the age of 50, it is recommended that one's body is actively fit enough, so he can work, he can take some hardships and all these things and continue to work. But after 50, the sense organs start becoming weak. And that is why it is mentioned that the 5 airs, life airs, are compared to a serpent with 5 hoods. Our digestive capacity decreases, but still people don't accept the fact that they are becoming old. So the 5-holder snake is like a life air becoming weak. So this, I conclude the class for the day. I have had to rush through a lot of important points in place. With this, I conclude the class. If you've got any questions or comments, you can ask me in the next few minutes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Mataji.
Prabhu, I don't know if I don't think I have a question, but I don't know if it doesn't pertain to the class though. Prabhu, like
first, what I would suggest, I can take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, not an issue, as long as the coordinator has no issue. If anybody has got a question on today's subject, I will take that first and then I'll take your question, if it's okay with you.
Yes, Prabhu.
Does anybody have any question on today's subject?
Prabhuji, I have a question.
Yes, Mataji,
Hare
please tell me.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
This Garbhadana Sanskara is something that we are coming to know only after reading the scriptures.
Okay.
So we don't know whether our parents went through all that because they may have got married at a very young age. And so do we become Varna Sankaras then?
Even first and foremost, generally in the years, all our parents used to perform this Garbhadana Samskara. Still, if you feel that, if somebody feels that they have not come on track, or maybe if you have a doubt, there is no need to worry about it, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given a very simple form of reforming our own self by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Anyone can purify oneself at whatever age it may be. So even if now, if you feel that your parents have not performed, there is nothing to worry. But if somebody, after understanding the subject, if they're not performing the Garbhadana Samskara, then it's a sinful activity, which my Guru Maharaj even now says that if you want to have union, please perform Garbhadana Samskara and then have union.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Hare
Krishna.
Anybody else, any other question on today's subject? Okay, Mataji, I can take your question now.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, we spoke about killing animals and all this during the classes. Prabhu, and Pitrulok also. Prabhu, like now when these film stars die and when they're cooking for them, then the non-veg is cooked. Does this, in the Pitrulok Amavasya days, and what we do for the Pitras is very different. But what they do, Prabhu, does that anyway benefit the person who's no more? Like distributing food to this thing on the...
I'll answer your question. One thing is that there is no mention that we have to offer meat to those of our forefathers. the lower class people, particularly the Shudras and so forth, they have their own type of priests who perform this Shraddha for them, because Brahmana priests don't perform for Shudras. This is a system that has been prevailing. Generally, the sons are supposed to perform Shraddha, and one is required to offer oblations in sacrifice, not for no animal, but then offer grains, which is offered to Vishnu, and then it is offered to the Pitraloka, the forefathers. When the oblations are offered, that is called Pindadana, and when that is offered, the forefathers become delivered from that struggle in the Pitraloka. But not this facility is not available for all. So some of the lower class men, their pujaris, their priests, they perform the sacraments, annual sacrifice. It is not necessary that the forefathers will accept it also. But then offering something is better than offering nothing, because otherwise the forefathers are depending on their generation to offer this Pindadana. So Pitraloka also, there are a lot of sinful activities that take place. So one has to be very careful in offering animals, that there is not necessary that one has to offer animals in sacrifice for Pindadana. No. For eating itself, there is a regulation on Amavasya, and so many mantras, and in spite of all these things, one has to suffer the reactions for this.
And what about, Prabhu, these, like when these film stars die, they distribute that food and all that in his name and all that. Does that reach that person, or it just accumulates in the sin of the person doing it?
It is only a pujari who has got that capacity. If he has done the Shraddha properly, then it might reach the forefather. But if a film star just distributes like this, it need not reach the forefather at all.
No,
it is another. It is another charity.
It doesn't reach the soul also, right,
No,
Prabhu? And he's not affected with the good karma or bad karma of that killing.
Who?
The soul which has passed away. Now, like when you see like the Rajkumar has died, and I see a lot of people distributing food in his name, non-veg, veg. So that the karma of killing that animal or distributing, whether it is a pious activity or an impious activities, the result does not go to that departed soul.
Correct.
Only the person who's doing it, he gets
he get the sinful reaction.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, another doubt.
Yes,
Prabhu, when you have a Shraddha on Ekadashi, like the scripture there's a lot of variation in the scriptures. Many say you should not do it on the Ekadashi day and do it on the Dwadashi day.
Correct.
Many say you can do it on the Ekadashi day, giving Ekadashi food. So which of it holds right, Prabhu?
I faced this similar situation when my priest told me.
Yes.
Then I said, the thing is, I will not eat anything in any case, even if it is offered to Vishnu.
Yes.
So then he changed the dates. That was the only option available, and Shraddha was performed some other day. Ultimately, if you see today, I have a doubt also if pujaris are capable of doing the Shraddha properly. So Srila Prabhupada gave a lot of very simple formula, like you can distribute Bhagavad Gita in the name of your forefathers, and definitely it will have effect.
Okay.
Which is the easiest and the best and the most reliable.
Okay. Because
Prabhuji, even Godana is okay, no, Prabhuji?
Yes, Godana also is possible.
Godana is not easy, like Mataji, for every Kadashi. Like, it's not, of course, Bhagavad Gita could still be followed. Because I face this every Kadashi Shraddha, like whether to do it, not to do it. I'm in a dilemma, so I thought I could ask you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, ma. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, then with Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Then with Pranam to everybody.
Anybody else, any other questions, comments? Can I take the class as closed, Prabhuji?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Dandot pranam to everybody. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, devotees, for the assistance.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you all.
Krishna.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all very much.